James Robert MacKinnon is nominated for an Emmy for Best Prosthetic Makeup as the Special Makeup Effects Department Head on Star Trek Picard, a category he actually won last year for Star Trek Discovery, among a few other Emmys that are in your collection. Now, James, you have Star Trek credits on your resume going back to First Contact in 1996. So first off, has the technology and the process of prosthetic makeup changed a lot over the years you've been in the industry and been in the Star Trek world?
Absolutely. And my Star Trek even goes beyond. It goes back from Deep Space Nine and Voyager before we started First Contact. Technology has changed, and older technology still is around because they both are great. They both excel in different aspects of what we need. So back in Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and First Contact, foam latex was our product of choice. Well, actually, it was our only product. Around that time, gelatin was starting to come into a play. Very volatile product, and that kind of went away really quick. And then silicone was the following up of that. But we still change every year in our products, but we still grasp at the original products that we used, that we're so familiar with, that we know how it works, we know how it films, we know the opacity of foam latex compared to silicone, what we use now. So basically, with those 4K, 8K, 12K, huge televisions that we're all watching at home now, which are almost the size of screens at a movie theater, our detail has to refine. So that's really all we're doing as artists, is every year we're refining our techniques to compensate for that visual. I always say that 4K should be Animal Planet and NASCAR, not for television. It's too much information for us. So those little splatters that we do, or those little paint lines or veins that we made many years ago, were a little bit blurry because of 35 millimeter film. Had a little bit of play, but now we have to soften that because you see every little speckle and every little spatter that to your eye looks like color or skin, but the camera picks it up as paint.
And on Picard, you're dealing with a different time period than in Discovery, and of course, even though it's the same Star Trek universe, you're dealing with a kind of a different set of aliens that you're creating for the shows. So how do the experiences differ? Was the process felt very much the same, just sort of with?
Well, Neville Page, our lead alien designer, and he is there as well for Discovery. So it starts with Neville and his creations. And then for Picard, it goes to Vincent Van Dyke at VVD Effects, where Vincent creates it, sculpts it, molds it, and then sends it to me where we put it on. So just the community of artists that it takes to create, like Mr. Voop. Now, Mr. Voop is foam latex. It's not silicone. And we chose that one for weight, because it's a big prosthetic. So that Dominic, who's underneath that makeup, is going to be under there a long time. So having him in a more breathable makeup was better for him. Sometimes we'll put a silicone cowl on, like in Discovery, most of the Klingons were silicone. Depending on if they were going to do a stunt, we would do a foam latex, so it would be a little lighter. So if they did a backflip, they wouldn't hurt their neck because they had 13 pounds of silicone on their head. But just and I think to go back to your question, Picard is a little more, I don't want to say realistic, but we did a little more humanistic aliens, a little more real life. Everything was very skin colored. So as an artist, you can hide a lot with painting veins and all that kind of stuff, to hide all that stuff with all these splatters. But with Romulans, flesh colored is really the hardest thing. So you have like Peyton List as as one of the Romulans, putting a prosthetic, ears, eyebrow blockers, eyebrows on a woman that has such beautiful skin. As an artist, we have to step up our abilities, because you got to hide that with no place to go to splatter a weird funky color to hide something. So it's all fleshy. So have to step up our game quite a bit on that show.
And speaking of which, the episode that you're nominated for specifically is Absolute Candor, which is a very Romulan heavy episode in terms of the makeup.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's set on the planet of Vashti, a lot of it, where Picard is going to pick up the character of Elanor, who becomes a part of his crew. Like, what made that episode stand out to you as a sort of an example of your work on the season?
Well, that episode, we were tandemly shooting Jonathan's city, Rag City. And so we were upstairs at Universal Studios shooting his stuff, and we were downstairs shooting Vashti. So with that said, we had 107 artists on set at one time doing all the aliens. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, we had 107 artists sitting at Universal Stage 26 with their boxes of prosthetics, with their correct ear size, forehead size, the color of the actress or actor that's going to sit in their hair matching the prosthetics that's sitting in front of them. Their eyebrows were all set up in front of them. So the artist comes in, sits down, doesn't have to guess what they're going to put on them. So we pre-fit, prefigure everything that goes on to that background or lead actor or actress before they even come in the trailer. So the artist doesn't have to go, I'm going to put this on and I'm going to put this on. They know exactly. And then me as a department head, I don't have to second guess what that person's going to do. They exactly know what to do. And timing wise, to be able to slip 107 makeup, hair, and beauty makeups to go in those different directions was a feat on its own. Yeah, it was a big day. It actually might have been. We feel that the Grinch had 97 artists on their biggest day, so I think we are the biggest Union 706 call ever, which is kind of cool, and put a lot of my friends and artists to work, which is great too.
And what's interesting about doing characters who are more humanoid and less sort of outlandishly kind of extravagantly makeup designed, is it also a challenge to kind of make each individual look kind of individual? Because like every human, no two humans look exactly alike, and so no two Romulans would look exactly alike.
Oh no, absolutely. In fact, we sculpted about 13 different foreheads and 7 different ears. So you had a combination that could be great on the right person and the right cool look. Actually, one of the Vashti nuns, Heather, she had gauges in her ear, and then her prosthetic. Weirdly enough, I was getting ready to do this another episode where another Romulan sits in my chair, and on the script it said old Romulan, but the prosthetic was not that old and not that wrinkly, and I'm like, I'm going to grab Heather's prosthetic and put it on him instead, and it actually turned out amazing. The sculpture was great, the wrinkles lined up to his. So as an artist, we have to be able to step in and go, that would be cool, but that piece would even be cooler. And you have the best thing about Star Trek is our fans, and we have to live up to their expectations and their excitement for this world. And I'm just extremely lucky enough to be part of it throughout all of these years. And many other people past me will be playing around. I know we're doing a couple more Star Trek iterations with Alex Kurtzman. So yeah, a lot more people are going to have a lot of good times on this show.
And the Absolute Candor episode introduces the character of Elanor. Does the approach change when you have a character who is so prominent and so heavily featured? Does a lot of extra detail work go into that? Because this is a character that we're going to see, and as you mentioned, on those close-up screens and high definition.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, even with Elanor, you had young Elanor, so you had to establish. We already had established Elanor before young Elanor worked, but then putting a prosthetic on a child. I mean, that kid was a kid, 7, 8 years old or something like that. So being able to have a kid sit in the chair for an hour and a half we actually double teamed him really quick to get him and out as fast as possible because they have time frames for working. But just skin texture, even for that, is even softer and more beautiful than a young lady's skin that has no faults that you can grab onto and add a freckle to do. So hats off to Mike Ornello's did that makeup and pulled it out great. Richard Redlifson does Eleanor's makeup. So we all actually have certain makeups, like I do 7 of 9, and Jonathan and Brent. I have two keys that do all the other Peyton's done by Alexi. Richard does Elanor. So they all kind of work in a pattern. They're always working on different sets and stuff. So not one artist does one makeup. But in case somebody's sick, we all know how to actually do that makeup, just in case somebody has to step in and repeat the look. But there's another thing is some people go, oh, you're just putting on eyebrows and some ears. That actual makeup takes longer and is more detailed than a Romulan forehead is because you're just correct myself there, applying a forehead, but just the detail, even like with Spock on Discovery, that makeup takes not so long, but a little bit longer because that detail needs to be there so you don't see that round edge of that blocker to get rid of Ethan's eyebrows because he's got a thick head of eyebrows.
In addition to the Romulans throughout the season, you are working with the kind of the Borg characters and the ex-Borg characters who are sort of, it's sort of a transitional period that we haven't seen very much in previous Star Trek other than 7 of 9, yeah. Which is, once they have, been reformed and recovered from being Borg. And so there's sort of like an in-between level with them, especially with Hugh, who we haven't really seen since he was pretty much almost entirely Borg.
He was in that big old suit and the big old piece. But Neville took reference from that. We took aspects, 7 of 9, we took aspects of her ocular piece, of her arm piece, of her hand piece, and we just brought it up to the 20th century in abilities, acting abilities, movability, product, but still stayed true to that original character. But again, it's like Klingons. People are like, you changed the Klingons, but you can't have a Klingon has an orange face and a Fu Manchu anymore. So technology has to change. It's what do you call it? Disbelief. You have to play along a little bit, but still stay true to their original characters. Even in First Contact, all those Borgs were those big full suits, wires and everything. But we tried to again stay true to that, but give a new fresh feeling to the XBs and the Romulan XBs as well. So it was a lot. I mean, we had between 30 to 50 makeup artists on set every day just taking care of that daily basis. So beyond the 107 artists, the day before we had 50 artists on set, and the day after that big day, or actually it was a week, we have to be prepared for going back to stage and having another 30 blah 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 working with new aliens, and simultaneously we have tests happening for episode 7, 8. It's a lot. It's a lot to do. It keeps you on your toes, but it keeps you on your toes.
And before you won your Emmy last year for Discovery, you won, I believe, 4 for working with Ryan Murphy on Nip Tuck, and then a few for American Horror Story. Now, of course, the world of Ryan Murphy is otherworldly in very different ways from Star Trek. What is that like creatively to work in this kind of horror makeup in terms of American Horror Story compared to kind of the science fiction makeup that goes into a Star Trek?
Well, I think it's in theory all the same. It's art. It's artistic license. So it's just a different genre. You have to be true to that. You have to be true to like Nip Tuck with the surgeries, the way people heal, the way people slice open. So referencing. We reference for Star Trek, we reference animals, we reference wildlife, insects. for coloration. So with that, you're referencing medical books. So it's all you're replicating truth. So as much research as you can is how you look after a surgery, or how you look after you're sliced down and you're filleted open. And Ryan loves makeup, and Erin Kruger McCash is Ryan's lady now. After I left Nip Tuck, Erin stayed behind and took over that franchise, and has been with Ryan since. And she's an amazing, and now she's a producer on it. So she's makeup department head designer and producer on all of his shows. So Ryan, as you can see with that aspect, Ryan knows and cares about makeup and that design so much that he would say, you, Erin, please take over that aspect and make sure that it runs extremely smooth. And you know what I want, and she knows how to make everything amazing for that run of that show. And along with American Horror Story, each year they're pulling so much cool stuff out of their hat.
Well,
it's
I want to.
fun, and the good thing about it is, as an artist, I get to play with aliens, and then Erin says, "Hey, I need help with an old age or a slit neck or something." So to be able to jump back and forth creativity-wise is cool as an artist too.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your latest Emmy nomination.
We also I actually run the beauty department as well, so I do the beauty makeup on the show. We had a few changes in our Emmy Awards rules this year, where you couldn't be on the same ballot or two ballots for the same show. So unfortunately, I had to drop off of the makeup ballot, but my assistant department head Sylvie Knight and her team took the nomination for that, and as well as our hair department, Maxine and Maria Sandoval. So we got actually three out of it, which is great.
Well, as a trekker, I understand all of the visual work that goes into the craft of all of those fields, or at least I can appreciate it, even though I'm not an expert in any of them.
No, it's crazy. It's a crazy process, and it takes a village. I mean, it takes everybody from PAs to the executive producers to create these shows. Each department has their own aspect and talent that it brings to bring all these shows together and make them wonderful and Jason Zimmerman, our visual effects supervisor, it's an honor to work with him and Ante, because we actually work so well together in figuring out what's best for the show, what's best for the budget. Like, does Jason feel that it's easier for it to be a makeup and not waste, whatever $300,000 on it of visual effects? He'd rather us do it, and sometimes we can't do it, or it would be better for him to touch it or play with it or extend it. So that culmination is amazing when it comes to that. It's called teamwork, which is awesome in this business.
Well, I want to wish you the best of luck, and your entire team, everyone who's nominated for Star Trek Picard, 5 nominations this year, plus 1 for short treks.
Which are so good.
Yeah, they're fantastic, and thank you so much for joining me today, and best of luck on everything to come in the future of Star Trek.
Yeah, Wednesday the 19th of September. We'll see what happens at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
All right, pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you too.
You too. Bye.